I would want to just maybe wait until I got home for the summertime to fill out my census. I don't even know what I would fill it out at all. And so, Tim, what would you say to all the college students?
More!
Lunch break!
Hey, we're back. Happy July, everyone. It's been a while. It's been a crazy summer. We also have our plus one, who is Tiger Bella Rose.
Our care holder plus one. It's a little thing we do on Patreon for when we want to have an extra guest here with us. We also have a familiar face. We have Dan Matthews here. Welcome back, Dan.
What's going on? That's 2 in 2 months.
So today is going to be a little bit different. We cover a lot of things here on Lunch Break. Today is going to be more informational, but in light of the recent events, I think it's very fitting. Today we're going to be talking about the 2020 census and why it's important and ways that you guys can participate in it, which is super simple. But I'll let Tim Wang kind of take over from here.
Thanks, Wes. And fellas, appreciate you guys letting me be on the show and just being able to talk a little bit more about the importance of the census. My name is Tim Wang, everyone, founder and principal of TDW&Co. We're a community-based communications agency that really helps to bridge dialogue between organizations and the community. Our role with the U.S. Census Bureau is actually serving as their official national communications partner in being able to reach out to the Asian American community about the 2020 census. So really excited to be here and excited to share more.
So we've known Tim. Tim's been a big part of our family for a really long time. When we were doing the ISA concerts back in the day, we did an ISA concert up in Seattle. It's actually been, I want to say, 10 years since we did that concert up in Seattle, but that we kind of had that connection again right now. So we're keeping it moving.
For anyone that doesn't know what the census is, that's totally cool. That's why we're talking about it right now. It's a count of communities and the population of the U.S. every 10 years.
So that's our first fun fact of the day. The census is done every 10 years.
And it's written actually in the Constitution that every 10 years there would be a full enumeration, a full count of every single person in every household in America. The basics to our democracy. Being able to have a full count every 10 years to understand population data and statistics. And so that really kind of helps to inform on representation. So the number of seats that each state gets to be represented in the House, which informs on the Electoral College. And as you guys all know, 2020 is an extremely important year.
I'm actually surprised that it's 10 years. That's crazy that it's a decade between each count. Like, how much can change in a week, you know?
And I was going to say, it's like really convenient that it's like 2020, 2010, because like sometimes I forget like what year is like the presidential election, because it's every 4 years. So I'm like, oh, the census is easy to remember.
And so what that means is, man, if we don't participate, or if we don't respond, if we don't get counted, we may lose out on being fairly represented, accurately represented. And that representation means a lot of different things. I mean, we're talking about cultural representation in addition to government representation.
I have a little experience. I guess like last week, Benson, you and I went to like a little gathering in the city, a little vigil, and actually Dan was there too. I went to go see this after the George Floyd murder and realized that we were one of a handful of Asians there. Dan, did you remember people were like taking our picture to show that there was solidarity, to show that other communities were coming out? It kind of made me realize that it's important just to show up, just so that people know that you care. I mean, that's why all these protests are happening. But beyond seeing things in your own eyes, it's just showing up so that you can be counted.
In the context of the world that we're all in right now, and people trying to understand how we can be involved and how we can participate and how we can show up. You know, one of the basic forms of representation is filling out the census. But there's other things too, you know, like registering to vote. There's other activities that we can all do to show a level of participation and civic engagement.
I think it's very important for us to talk about because yeah, you hear so many things about like like cultural festivals and celebrations and things like that, and I think there's the contrast of like melting pot where everything kind of like melds into one, but there's also like the fruit salad analogy where it's like everybody kind of coexists together and is able to like share their cultures and their existence together too.
That's a great point. I mean, I think one of the things that, we really rely on census data for is to be informed on how we plan for the future, right? Because there's been so much, Wes usually talk about like so much can happen in a matter of weeks, but so much can really happen over the course of 10 years, a decade. And if the last full count was in 2010, just think about how much has changed since then. The people makeup, where people live, like, the migration patterns, the foreign-born population immigrating here, right? So how do you know that you need to be able to have resources dedicated to a particular cultural group if you're not showing or reflecting that population growth? How would you know that you would need services to service Chinese or Korean or the Vietnamese or the Filipino community or our South Asian communities? How would you know if you didn't kind of participate and show the reflection of the population shifts, right? We pay taxes, we all pay taxes, right? Mm-hmm. The Census Bureau is what helps to inform on how those taxpayer dollars are used for programs in like education, schools, health, roads, and I think that for many of those that are watching this programming, this might be the first time that you're filling out the census.
What are the questions that are on the census, Tim?
Your name, yes, where do you live? It's your gender, how many people are in your household, age is also included.
It's not that much more than that. It's like the most basic information that you'd write on like a standardized test. And I remember when I did it, I was like, oh, that's it.
It's super easy.
You shouldn't have to study.
So one thing I just want to mention is that we have until October 31st of 2020 to be able to respond to the census. Online and by phone, you can actually respond to the census in 13 languages. So there are 6 Asian languages that are available that you can respond to online, and also by phone. Someone on the phone can also help you.
Yeah, just to recap, all that information helps determine where resources go. And how decisions are made so that we can be best served in our communities. Probably our parents' generation is the one that's a little out of touch, and they might not know the importance of the census. And we know that a lot of people watching, Wang Fu fans and lunch break viewers, tend to have a close relationship with family. And we always want to educate our immigrant parents. So there's really no reason that they can't be part of the census, because there's instructions in every language, and it's actually pretty cool. Like, I got the Cantonese instructions, and I felt like I learned a little bit of Cantonese just from watching the ad. But to think that they have that in every language, it's really amazing, and I feel like they should do that with every kind of government resource.
So one of the things that I think is extremely important, especially for the audience that's listening out there, is I know that, like, as a college student, if I was going to college at one point and then I was going to go home for the summertime, I would want to just maybe wait until I got home for the summertime to fill out my census. Or, especially with COVID happening, I don't even know when I would fill it out at all. And so, Tim, what would you say to all the college students?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Dan. So for college students, we would encourage that they would fill out the census at a place where they would normally be during the time that they're filling out the census. So for example, if they would normally have been in a dorm, then in the group quarters setting, the dormitory would have taken care of that. But if they are in off-campus residences, or if they're in off-campus living, they would want to fill out the census with the address that would be corresponding to that off-campus living. So yes, so if there's any fear, if there's any question, just go ahead and just do it. Just fill out the census where you would normally have been on April 1st.
Tim, you come from the advertising side. This data also is extremely important in the films that we get to see that represent us. It also has a lot to do with when maybe Pepsi or Coke or Sprite or another company is thinking about potentially making a soda or doing a commercial for a particular segment, it probably informs their decisions on how they spend their money too.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, Dan. Yeah, we work in the world of marketing and advertising, and oftentimes a lot of companies will want to see, size of population, size of that opportunity, the opportunity for consumer buying power, and also just, the ability to reach eyeballs and audiences. And so, I mean, when it comes to, the rise in Asian Americans in entertainment, a lot of that actually relies heavily on the numbers that show, the growth in population and why we need to pay attention to the Asian American community.
Is the data that's collected, is it public afterwards?
So what happens after the collection process of all of our household data is then packaged, and then it will be then submitted to the White House. As it relates to the disaggregated data of what we will see, what could be made publicly available, there are some disaggregation numbers by race and by geography because of confidentiality, right, and because of privacy of that level of information. That's really a high priority for the Census Bureau, right? But
yeah, guys, this is extremely important. When you think about, to emphasize what Tim just said, it literally impacts, like, this is probably one of the most direct ways outside of voting that you really have an impact on shaping your community. If you can think about the amount of people that we see in Congress right now, you literally have the impact to make another congressperson happen for you.
Okay, everybody, I just want to reemphasize, go to 2020census.gov for more information, and you can also be able to get to the questionnaire itself. It's available in, again, 13 languages, so you can do it, and some of your family members, they can do it as well. They have until October 31st, you guys, October 31st of 2020 to do it. Please fill it out. It's safe, easy, and it's important.
If you guys have felt passionate about being outspoken because of the recent events, like Dan said, this is a direct way that's going to affect how we're represented and the issues that matter to us, how those things get taken care of. So don't try to disconnect this as something separate. This is all, if anything, this is more urgent.
Anyway, thanks Tim, thanks Dan for joining us.
Really appreciate you
I learned a lot today.
On board and being able to share the message, and I just really appreciate what you guys are doing for our community. Let's rise up together.
And thanks everybody for watching another episode of Lunch Break. Thanks to all the listeners on our podcast. And once you're done with the census, make sure to check out wongfoodstore.com. But don't go there until you do the census first, okay? Anyway, we'll catch you guys next week.